After researching the historical background of New Kensington, using my natural interest relating to this issue, I chose to become involved with two city organizations and the police department that are striving to improve our city.
The Hill Watch and the Block Watches in general are fairly new. 10 years ago, if we had a crime and we responded to that crime, it was very hard to get anyone to step up and tell us what they saw or point out who was involved. Rarely did we get any cooperation. The Hill Watch and the Block Watches now, they literally call us, sometimes actually before the crime occurs, which has led to arrests of individuals, which is proactive. They're fantastic. That program has over 1,000 arrests. It's been 8 years that the program's been running. It has literally taken the open air drug cells out of New Kensington. Do we still have issues with drugs? We do. That's being honest. It's now done out of houses. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I would have told you crack cocaine is number one. It was the drug of choice out here. Now, today, anywhere that you find the crack cocaine, you'll find the heroin. They can sell drugs anywhere. It can be out on a farm. There's no particular place, but in general, they like to be in an area where there's a lot of people, where, of course, the more they sell, the more money they make. They normally will use apartments. They're normally not homeowners. And these drug dealers aren't dumb. They know that it's a matter of time before the police are going to find out it's in operation. The way they say it on the street is it's hot. So they'll, on their own, move to another place. And here, to be quite honest, what we've seen a lot of is they like to find young females who have children. And why is that? Because these women, girls need money to survive. So they'll come in, they'll meet them, and they'll pay their bills, their electric, their gas, give them money for food, and they'll use that individual's apartment as their base of operations, and we see that over and over. Well, they have their connections. In this area, normally they're going to Cleveland, Philadelphia, New York City, and at times they actually go to Detroit, and that's where their suppliers are, and they pick up their narcotics and they drive them back. That's how a drug market operates. To be quite honest, it's a business. You have your supplier, you have your individual that transports the narcotic here. Sometimes it's the drug dealer himself that's doing the transportation. That drug dealer sometimes will have people who work for him, and he'll break down those amounts, and then they'll all go out and sell. Then, of course, the proceeds come back to the drug dealer, who then goes back to his source and re-ups, and it just keeps going. Well, of course, you'll find all the paraphernalia, such as spoons, scales, the cutting materials that they cut the cocaine with to make the crack, which can be a variety of items. For heroin, you're going to find your needles, the stamp bags, as well as firearms. And a lot of times you'll find firearms wherever any of this stuff is at. The number one issue is fear. Those people who live around that drug house know that with the drugs come the shootings where innocent people can be hurt. Your children. You don't want your children out on the street with these individuals because violence is associated with drug dealing. No gangs. There are no gangs in this city. We have wannabes that'll wear the colors or maybe do some tagging somewhere. But no, there are no active gangs in the city. Almost any crime you can think of, you can tie into illegal narcotics. Why do they commit them? Well, for instance, I worked a homicide where an individual owed the drug dealer money. The drug dealer was upset that the individual didn't have the money. The shooting occurred. Give you another example. I worked a homicide where an individual showed up at a bar to purchase narcotics from a drug dealer. What he did was he took a roll of money, they were ones, a roll of ones, and he put a 20 on the outside. $20 bill, which would lead this drug dealer to believe that they were all 20s when they weren't. He couldn't even get out of the area, and he got shot and killed before he could leave the area. One thing I have definitely learned in working undercover is that even if the bad guy suspects that they know who you are, if you show them the money, they'll do the deal. That's how important that money is. They could care less who they hurt or who they harm, as long as they're getting the money they're after. Drug charges vary. You have possession, that is a misdemeanor. If an individual possesses a narcotic with the intent to deliver, that's normally quantity. The average user out here of crack cocaine, he may walk around with 3-4 rocks in his pocket because they're expensive. But if you run into an individual who has 2 ounces on him, and it's broken down into what we call rocks, that's normally sold for $20 a rock out here. A rock is 0.5 of a gram of crack cocaine. They call it a rock because it looks like a pebble. So if you have someone that has 2 ounces, then obviously that individual is selling the stuff, and that's possession with intent, which is a felony. Or if you actually catch an individual doing a delivery, that also is a felony. And the sentences vary according to that individual's arrest record and the amount of narcotic and what type of drug that individual possesses. Those things will determine what type of sentence he gets. If I sat here and told you that we could stop it, that would be a lie. Law enforcement has to keep pressure on individuals that want to come and set up and sell narcotics here. If you can get the word out, and it happens, these people talk to each other, that New Kensington's not the place to come and try to sell narcotics because you're going to get arrested, then these people that distribute narcotics generally will go to an area where there's not pressure. So if you can keep pressure on them, then generally they'll go someplace else, and that's what we try to do. There's different tactics. Search warrants, of course, are one. Developing enough information, probable cause, to obtain a search warrant and to shut that house down. Other ways are intervention, and that is if you get intelligence that Mr. X is coming from Cleveland and bringing crack cocaine into the city, and he's driving a blue Volkswagen, you get that type of information, then you can work with other agencies to stop that vehicle on its way into town and make an arrest prior to that narcotic getting delivered. Various programs where we had a lot of help from the outside. For instance, we had a trigger lock here, which was a lot like the saturation when the weed and seed program that currently is running started. And this was in 1996. I ran this program, and you can see all the undercover stuff that was done. Drug dealers were located, identified, bought off of, and then arrested. This was also a major program, which had a major impact on the city of New Kensington. In 1999, the state police came in, our undercover people, working with the New Kensington officers. It was called DART in 1999 is when this came into effect. Similar to the trigger lock we just talked about from 96. The difference was it was on a smaller scale, but again, 105 individuals were identified as dealers. Buys were made off of them and then arrested. So as you can see, a lot of work has gone into this. It cost a lot of money. We would go out and have surveillance units in all of these, take pictures of these people, these dealers. Once those pictures were developed, we would then use all the resources we can, which would mean every officer in this department, and informants, and get the identities of these dealers, who they were. Once we knew who they were, then we would go buy the drugs off of them. And again, we did that various ways, undercover officers or through the use of informants, and make the arrests. The result of these programs in the last 15 years has done a 180 for this city. There is no one out here standing on the street selling dope. It's not happening. We used to have crowds out here. They're gone. These streets are now safe. You can walk these streets. Again, I attribute that to all these programs that New Kensington has been fortunate enough to be involved in. I hope the help continues to come our way.